Hello and welcome to the Writecome.com podcast, where we help you to make money from your words. Each episode will be sharing tips, tricks, and strategies you can use to make more money from your writing, publishing, and marketing to your fans and audience. Let's get started with your host, Barry J. McDonald.
Hi, this is Barry here, and you are very welcome to today's podcast episode from Writecome.com, and today's podcast episode is entitled Embrace the Cringe. Now, none of us likes to look back on our work and be totally embarrassed by it, but it does happen from time to time. Sometimes I look back at some of my earlier pieces of fiction and I can spot how poor my characters are, how bad the storylines were, and how bad the dialogue was. Or even going back to this podcast, going back a few episodes in this podcast, I can spot some of the mistakes I've made in episodes. I cringe sometimes at how I mispronounce words, how I leave maybe words out of sentences, and how sometimes I repeat myself over and over again. So I can spot all those things and I sometimes cringe at them. And the most natural thing is for you to want to just delete that book, delete that blog post, delete that podcast episode and start fresh. And hopefully hoping that maybe the next episode is going to sound a lot better, or your next piece of fiction is going to be written a lot better, or will read a lot better than your previous work was. But unfortunately you are going to look back on your work and cringe. And that is a good thing too. Unfortunately, a lot of us feel, well, if we cringe at how bad our work is, well, then that means it's bad. But it's not that it's bad. It is that we have moved on from that point that we were when we were writing that book. That book or that podcast episode or that video is almost like a snapshot. It's like somebody took a photograph of you back then and that moment is frozen in time. How you were as a person is frozen in that podcast episode. How you were as a person is frozen into that piece of fiction. How you were as a blogger is frozen into that blog post back then. And the person who is going to come back to that blog post in the weeks and months ahead hopefully is going to see a big difference in themselves. And because they can see a big difference in themselves, they are going to look back through that content and they are going to cringe at it. So if you have content that you have out there, whether that's blog posts, whether that's podcast episodes, whether that's videos, pieces of fiction or whatever, if you find that you are looking at that content now and you do find yourself cringing at it, be grateful that you are cringing at it, because it does mean that you have improved as a writer. It probably means you have more experience as a podcaster, or you are more confident on video than you were back then. So embrace the cringiness, because it means you have grown, it means you have matured, it means you have probably learned new skills, or you've got more experience under your belt. And those earlier moments, those snapshots in the blog posts, podcast videos or whatever that you've done in the weeks and months and years previously, be grateful they are there, because in the future you are probably going to look at the work you are doing right now and cringe at it, because even though you may feel, well, the person I am right now is a lot better than the person that was a year ago, in a year from right now, you are going to have a year's experience under you, maybe more content written, and your ideas are probably going to change. You're probably going to get more experience and more skills, and you are going to look back on today's content and cringe. So what I want you to do today is not to delete those blog posts, not to delete those podcast episodes, or all those things that you cringe at. Hold them up as snapshots. There you go. There's a cringy moment for you now. Snapshots of your past. Hold them up and be glad that the person who is looking at them right now is completely different, and because of that is why you are cringing. So as always, if you'd like to reach out to me, you can certainly send an email to barryjmcdonald@gmail.com, or if you'd like to know more what I do over on the Writecome site, you can go over to Writecome, that's WRITECOME.com. And if you haven't subscribed already, maybe if you want to subscribe, I will send all the next couple of episodes on to you. Or if you have any social media buttons close by, if you'd like to maybe share this episode with somebody else, I would really appreciate it. And as always, thanks for sharing your time again today. Take care and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like more from the Writecome.com podcast, be sure to subscribe now for more tips, tricks, and ideas you can use to make more money from your words. See you in the next episode.